Okay, I think we should be all right now. Let me see if we have sound. I had to fix some technical difficulties. Okay, so what I want to share with you is a process of how I set up mixes and get mixes from other producers or artists who need to get a song mixed. In this case, I got the session as a Logic file, as you see here. Uh, the producer already had. I had the producer bounce all the audio tracks, so any effects that are on the audio track, I like to have the producer to submit it. I mean, to consolidate it and bounce it to the track. But as you can see, a few of the channels have EQs and sounds that they were looking to accomplish, a certain vision with the song. So what I'll do a lot of times, I'll take these same exact settings. As you can see, this a lot of these plugins here. We have, a few EQs, some corrective EQs. Then we have a bus compressor and other things, right? And this allows us to. Oh, man, did it get stuck? Are we still moving? Okay. I don't think we're able to see the plugins. Let me see if I can fix that issue. Show windows with empty names. I'm still working out the kinks. As you can see, I'm not a professional YouTuber, but I do know how to get a good sound for your mix. So I'm trying to figure out how I can show you the plugins. I may have to do this. Let me see. I may have to move the screen here. Plugins, plugins. And we're gonna switch the screen. Let's see here. We can change the window. Let's add a window or display. And we're gonna go to display. I think this may work. Okay, so now we could see all of the plugins. Let me see if we are. Okay, cool. So in this is the session before we go into the mix, right? This session here was created. This is in the process of creating the actual song. This is what the producer had. As you see, they had autotune, various other plugins that a lot of times are tried to print to the track. Like if this is what they like, I rarely change anything about it. But looking at it here, I wish I added the gate, because this particular sound later on down the mix actually has artifacts that has to be cleaned up, right? Oh, are you able to still see my face? I don't see my face. Let me see if I have to change it a different way. There it is. Back. There's my face. Okay. So as you can see, all the audio files, how it was originally recorded, was in this Logic session. So when I bounce it out, a lot of times I create the auxes, so I can have the plugins that they use for the bus compression. Like they have different reverbs. So I am sure a lot of times I try to keep all the plugins updated to whatever a producer is using, so I can get the same exact sound, and also give me the opportunity to replicate it if necessary. So, like in this case, I did use like when I open up the Pro Tools session, you'll see like how I use these plugins. So as you can see here, the producer used it in the bus, the vocal bus, where all the vocals are going to this bus, and it has a de-esser. It's cutting off like the around the 75 hertz. There's a bus compressor, this emulation of the Neve from Arteria. They call it a DD609, and they're using this as the bus compressor. So I'll take all of these sounds, and then I will and then I'll bounce them all out. So in this case, I bounced all these sounds. Let me see if I have the folder. I could possibly show you how I bounced it down to stems to be used. Let me see if I did that on this session here. So a lot of times, just to bring this over here, I'll ask for the reference mix as well, because the reference mix helps for me to have a guideline of your vision and for me to enhance it. Like, and also I'll ask producers to print out any like reverbs that are special or delays or anything of that nature to ensure that you have your same vision, because all I'm gonna do is enhance it at that point. So let's I wanted to show you how the files look when I bounced them out, because it's pretty important, because it's a little different from like how others bounce these files, because a lot of times they'll bounce just the instruments but miss key components of the sound, such as the bus folders, some of the reverbs. So like if you see here, if we go to the original bounce, you can see how when I bounced it out, I numbered them, and you can see all of the audio files in this number sequence. And of course you can do this in Logic by going to File, Export, and then export all tracks as audio files. And then as you can see here, I have the labels where it has the track number and the track name. And I like to keep it 24-bit. Some include tempo information. Sometimes, you want to just keep it the overload protection, but often you could keep it off if it's at a high bit depth. because if a lower dip bit depth, it may cause like some distortion that's undesirable. So once I have these files bounced out, so we'll close this Logic session, and these are the files that were bounced out. Once the session is, I'm gonna kind of fast forward uh, to the point of where I'm at now with the mix, which is completed. It's already been turned in, but I'll show you at least the some of the session, how I bring in all the audio files to the session, and then I organize it in a certain way so I can be able to mix it. I have templates that I use. Sometimes I'll bring in sounds, I mean template presets to the session so it can so I can achieve certain goals without trying to recreate a process. So let's open up the Pro Tools session as you can see here. In this case, we have already inserted all of the audio files. As you can see in the clipped folder, within the clipped folder, you can see all of the files that were uploaded, right? The numbered files. And also, later on, we have the bounces and the printed material that I made. Like, we have different versions of the prints. But before we go that, what there is the very first thing I do in the mix, I go through the cleaning process. So I'll first listen. Of course, I'll listen to the stem. As you can see here, I have a reference track for the rough mix. Then I have references of songs. So one of the references is from Ariana Grande, like her most recent song, and I had Carnival from Kanye West. There are sometimes I use other references for this particular mix. I just went with what's popular and what's kind of fitting the genre of the music, which is a combination of these two songs. Uh, as you can see here, I also have various tools to just get analysis of what's going on in the references, different ways I listen to the references. I'll use tools such as this here, the VX, or even the embody sound, emulate studio emulations, so I can hear all the elements of the sound in different ways. I also have like the speakers here in the studio and various speakers that I use to listen to the playback. I'm not going to go into the actual song itself. I just want to show you the elements of the how I still use certain aspects of the Logic session, but I also enhanced it tremendously so it has more dynamic range, more width, and like creating like a 3D environment for the vocals to lay in. So as you see, so there's a lot of what you call buses where I'm sending audio to various channels to achieve various goals. So we'll start with what I did with the bass. So the bass in this song is electronic bass, and there are certain things that I wanted it to do. So for one, I wanted to have more. I wanted it to have more. Can we hear this? I'm playing from the computer. Yeah, I wanted it to have more saturation on the lower end. So like I added some saturation within this band, this lower band here. Then I noticed that it needed more lower end far as the bass, so I created some more sub with this plugin here. Uh, Later on, I once I had the sounds pretty balanced. A lot of times I don't start with any plugins. I'll start with just getting a good balance and cleaning all the audio up. Like I had to tune the vocals. Uh, but once I got there, I get to a place of doing side chaining. Like in this case, I side chain the bass and the kick. So every time the kick hits, the bass goes down on these lower frequencies and keeps it controlled, but also fills the room with the low end. So this to show you a little of the vocals and some of the regrets too, because like I said, I noticed there was noise, some of the vocals that I didn't get all the way, but you can see for the most part, I did have gates running on every channel. So a lot of times I'll either use a gate or I'll go and manually edit the audio regions. In this case, I just used the gate because I was getting a consistent sound. The noise floor is very consistent. Although I had to use some editing with the vocals to to ensure that the noise didn't become too loud. So like if I'll go into this Melodyne here, we can see a few of the edits like throughout the whole song. Like I said, in the beginning phase, I go through the process of cleaning the audio, of setting the levels, tuning the song, tuning the instruments, tuning the vocals, because this is the most important part of the mix, believe it or not. Because these small artifacts, like if it's untuned properly, or if you have like noise in the vocals, it's gonna affect how the reverb works. It's gonna affect dynamic processing. So like before you even do anything, like with using plugins, I mean the best thing to do is clean up the audio as best as you can. That means add fades or you know cuts to the audio. So once of course, before doing that, you want to organize your session. A lot of times, I organize a session where all the instruments are above the vocals. It's pretty massive track, as you can see. Then I route all of these particular instruments to another bus. And the reason you want to use a bus, it gives you control the in the in the sound stage, the gain stages rather, because the gain stages determine how loud a sound is hitting a compressor. It determines the dynamics of the sound. So having these different stages of the gain allows you to raise it without causing distortion, without with without causing like disruptions to plugins, even because plugins a lot of times they have a threshold where you get the best sound. A lot of times around -18 to -6 area. Once you hit that area, that's when you can get the best sound of the EQs, the best sound of the compressor. So having these buses allow me to do that in very creative ways, and also it creates a way of, like I said, controlling it. So every instrument here, I'm either using the saturation of the plugin, like in the case here, I cut off a little of the lows, using a little of just cutting off the lows in here, but using the saturation of the plugin So within, let's go to the vocals here. So now the lead vocals, as you can see, I tuned them. I even named it tuned. But if we were to go to the vocal here, you see all I have here is a de-esser cutting off around, we got the 443 uh 25 hertz. Added a little high end, took a little of the low off on that one. So I'll just go through the process of like organizing the sounds and bussing them for specific purposes. Like here, the ooze is bust to this channel where I have a Vox box on it, right? Which is adding some highs, has some compression on it, has some de-esser, and then I go through it into a flanger. This created a space to the sound and clarity. Then I added some more funky things we can look at real quick. So the chorus, if you look at that, see what that's doing. A lot of these plugins I learned from a lot of video tutorials, from looking at a lot of Dave Pensados and videos, and mixed with the masters. Also, like working in studios with a lot of professionals over the years, you start learning what a chorus is doing. You know, so in this case, yeah, we have the flanger, which has a medium chorus, but then we have compressor, which is evening out the sound that's hitting the flanger, so it stays in a place, and then we're gonna add a EQ to take out the mids and enhance the highs, which is where the stereo effect is more prominent in your ear. So everything works together, and to the point where one small movement can affect another sound. So everything is about small nuances, not doing too much, and these small little mediums equal up to a full whole, or small fragments, right? So like, for instance, this lo-fi. Let's open this up. The lo-fi delay. I didn't have the echo farm, so I had to replicate it. I used this delay eternity, and again, I bring it into the compressor just to hold it in a place within the stereo spectrum, and then we'll widen it out. So it just creates space within the delays, so it's not taking up any of the room within the vocal itself. It just kind of keeps it in its own place. So that's what a lot of the plugins that I use it does to the sound. It just keeps everything stationary and where you want it to be, instead of it being in different places of the stereo field. So as you can see, you have a lot of buses. Like, for instance, I'm using this ARP here. I have it fed. As you can see, it's fed considerable a lot, right? Into this panner where I spread the stereo field and then I added the panner, so it's moving within the left and right, but it's not so heavy where you can't hear the center tones of the ARP. And you will hear a lot of these sounds and how it came together once Ian Christian is the name of the artist, releases the song. You'll hear the final version, which is pretty exciting. For I think you'll like it. So, uh, what you see here, a lot of times in the mixes that I do, I once I mix everything and got it to a place where everyone is happy, I'll bounce them out as stems, as you can see here, and this allows like the mastering engineer to have more flexibility, or for you to have stems for a live show. Like if you ran these stems, you could just take out all the vocals or the drums and have the drummer play the drums, and keep the music, and or just switch it around. Gives you a lot of options when you go live and play live with the live musicians. Let's see here. What else I want to show? There's a lot of little things that I did. Like for instance, here using this little radiator, I added some saturation to the snares and the snaps. Took out a few of the high range that I was hearing that was conflicting with some of the other sounds, because you want everything to work together. So a lot of these EQs, like this one, looks like it's just used for the saturation itself. I have cut off a little of the low end, but like I said, very small movements. Sometimes I go extreme, like with the perks here, percussions. I put a lot of saturation on it, like a lot of transformer saturation. So let's see here. We have the piano. As you can see, I was playing around with it. I was had a lot of different ideas, but it ended up going down to just a few things, right? You have the transformer, the channel EQ, where I took off some of the highs, added some of the lows, a little bit of the mid, right? Had some gate on it and a lot of compression, and I turned it down a little bit to balance it into the mix. Then we also added a stereo image because I was playing with the width of the piano and where it's sitting in the spectrum of the stereo. Then we throw it into this Lex reverb. What I end up using for the reverb, I believe. Oh, okay. We're using the Seventh Heaven, and just use the plate for this one. Sometimes it's choosing a plugin. A lot of times comes from knowing what sound you're going for. A lot of like you could. There's a lot of different reverbs. They all have qualities that can be used creatively, and I like to explore different sounds and how it affects the overall sound. Nothing is just a consistent use. It's a lot of times it's just looking for a specific sound. In this ARP, I was playing around with some of the delay effects, having it pitch and do a lot of different tones. But as you can see, I went pretty extreme with this EQ to balance specific frequencies within the key, which keeps the balance, keeps the sound up front, but it allows for you to push it a little louder, and it won't clash with the other frequencies that you don't want it to clash with. And that's what that did. And when you hear the record, you hear it kind of moving from left and right in your speakers, and you'll hear a lot of like reverse sounds within it, but it's not distracting, like because it stays in its own place due to how the compressor is working. Another thing, I'll just throw it out there. Like you can see, I have automation throughout the session. Like there's automated planes, like for throw delays. Like I have one here. I got an echo boy. So there's delays. There's preamp. There's a lot of, you can't really see it in this mode, but there's automation throughout the song. Uh, One thing in some of the trainings that we'll go over is the usage of VCAs. VCAs is a way where you can route your groups of sound into one virtual fader, you know. And this virtual fader, what it does, as you can see, if I have, in this case, I have all the vocals routed to this VCA, so I can just press one, mute this, and it mutes all of the vocals without affecting anything else. This is really good for like if I had to create an instrumental version of the mix, or if you want to do other things like create a acapella, or even if you want to automate this channel. VCAs allow you to do this, and you can do that with all of your instruments, from the bass, you know, to the other music elements. So this is all I wanted to share with you. Like I said, I didn't show any of the music, or how any of this works really, and how I made my decisions. But I just wanted you to see that these decisions came together, and you eventually hear it on the final mix when it's released. So you see the different EQs, even EQs, they all have benefits. Especially like the EQ that comes with Pro Tools. I used it for many years. It's really good at just doing the job of an EQ. There's no like saturation. There's no emulations. It's just a digital EQ that does the job very well. Like you don't want to sleep on any of these plugins that come with Pro Tools. So you kind of get an idea. The workload. And this mix took, I'll say, like 4 or 5 hours to complete. Um, Even after the revisions and some of the requests, we got a really good sound relatively quickly. So I'm gonna show you this, just to the master bus. As you can see, my master bus is a little different. It doesn't go straight to the master. I have an aux master, which is fed from all of these channels here. So all Vox, the all music, everything goes into this aux master, and then that aux master goes into the print. As you can see, it's called print, and it goes to the 49, and it goes to the master. Right. This is a channel where, if I wanted to, I can add the master. But in this case, I just added a. This is a trick I learned from Jason Joshua, and it's just using the tone of the transformers of this shadow here's compressor. As you can see, I don't have any threshold. It's a little bit of gain, but I'm just using the mid. This is like a throttle. Like if you could take off, so the higher it is, like the nickel, it has a higher, brighter tone. The lower one has a lower tone, and the middle, as you guess, has a middle or mid-range warmth. So I use this on the master in this particular mix. I I had the Ozone 10 and the master plan. Like I was, a lot of times I throw this on if I want to have a louder mix. As you can see, I was messing around with the low end, took a little of it off, and made it louder. But I ended up not using any of it because I was gonna run it into the Bus Plus. It's a SSL Bus Plus 2 to do the final mastering. I use the analog matrix of certain plugins that are used to bring more analog sound into the mix. Then I run into a L2. As you see, it doesn't do anything but captures anything that's above zero. That's his only job, just capture anything that goes too loud. But a lot of times it makes them well below the threshold, so it's no effect on the signal. Now the final playback, as you can see, I can route out the outputs to different channels, uh, as you can see here, and these channels will allow me to listen to the playback because, like I mentioned, I'm really heavy on listening to playback, listening to what it sounds like in different speakers. So one of the ways I go with this adapter, of course, give me the levels, or I can uh, sample other sounds. I use this meter quite a lot, which is the SSL meter, where I could get the read of the stereo field and some VUs, things of that nature. There's a few VU meters that I use. So, of course, I use this as well. As you see, I have the codec on when I made it active, and I'll keep it low. So it has a long delay on it. So this is mostly used when I'm closer towards the end of the mix, where I'll put the low codec on so I can listen to the lowest quality of bit rate and sound quality that you'll find on YouTube. So I could kind of make a judgment to things that I may need to fix. A lot of times I get a really good mix because of this. Like working within the limitations of the dynamic range, right? Working within the limitations of bit rates. We're in a time where most of the songs that we have on streaming services, they're gonna crush the sound. If you get to a certain level of 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 dynamics, right, or loudness. So having tools like this helps to keep that in check. Also, I use the sound reference ID. It's mostly for my headphone mixes and the speakers that I may use. Then, of course, I route that into this plugin here, the NX Studio emulation. And a lot of times I use this to manage, just get another reference. I like to listen in different environments. A lot of times I'll trade this one off with the Embody. I think I mentioned that to you. The Embody one, or, there's some other emulations that I'll use on the master channel here to finalize the mix. So that is my mix review of this particular session. I didn't go too in depth to all of the different plugins. Of the effects, which they're special effects. But I'll just give you an example of, like, I'm seeing I'm missing the fuzz box. I have to update that plugins. But we're looking like these are borrowed, techniques that I learned over the years. But as you can see, there's a lot of plugins doing a lot of cool things. And when you listen to the song, you will hear them like what it does. It just makes it like an epic sound to the layouts of these plugins. And that's one thing that I like to do to every mix is like to bring a special quality to the mix. But as you can see here as well, as I showed you on the other in the Logic, that the producer used this plugin on their bus for all the vocals. I did the same thing here. So we still have the same sound of the bus that they use, but of course, I have another bus for the vocals as well that I feed all the leads and a lot of the channels into. You can see it here. So all the vocals, the first goes into this, like you see, very similar to what the producer did. I still have the Neve 1073 is what they are emulating with this. So I got this Neve. Then I go into saturation. As I told you, I like saturation. I have very low percents, but it's like keeps everything balanced. Like if it gets too hot, it kind of fuzzes out, if that's the right word. It kind of controls uh, how loud it is. And of course, I have RVox to an L2. Again, doing very little, just capturing the peaks. So that goes into this lead vocal bus, and it ended up going into the lead vocal combination, which is this here. It also, I have it routed so it goes into the Poltex. If I want to have like a higher frequency, I'll throw it into this channel where it's managing the higher frequency ranges. And you can kind of see, like I have a lot of boost in the 8K area. Then I take it out. Once it goes through the compressor, I take a little bit out. But this is only if I need that higher frequency to kind of pop out a little bit more. But in the case of this song, I didn't use it. So I keep that muted a lot of time. And you see how low the volume is. So once it goes into this combinator, I have another de-esser that captures some of the frequency. And then of course the L2 to capture all the extra peaks. So yeah, that is pretty much what it is. Hopefully, whoever was watching, if there's anybody, had a chance to see what I am doing, and possibly we can work together on one of your projects. All right, thank you, and have a great day.